Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday weather outlook for the southern region, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, yesterday afternoon, NOAA released its 2019 Atlantic hurricane seasonal outlook, and due to a few things, we've got warm sea surface temperatures right now in the western Atlantic, in the Gulf of Mexico, and also in the Caribbean, but we're also anticipating having weak El Nino-like conditions across the Pacific. Those two things kind of counteract one another, and basically what we end up getting here is decently stronger wind shear, which would help to reduce the hurricane season, but at the same time we do have one of those important ingredients to make hurricanes stronger, which is those warm sea surface temperatures. But this is going to be a very challenging hurricane season to produce any sort of a long-range forecast, and you can see here from NOAA's outlook that they're kind of split. They're really calling for a pretty, what I would call an average hurricane season. But as we always say when it comes to these hurricanes, it just takes one, which is why since the beginning of hurricane season for the Atlantic starts on June 1st, we're going to start keeping a very close eye on the tropics and just keep ourselves aware of anything that's going through there. In the meantime, let's just take a look at what we've got over the last 72 hours. We've been discussing now for, it feels like several weeks, what's been going on in the flow pattern of the atmosphere with the larger ridge still sitting over the southeast. We're about to get some very, very hot days, a stretch of them coming up where we're going to get into the middle and upper 90s for a lot of the southeastern region. Meanwhile, we've had quite a bit of severe weather and a lot of rainfall down in parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. In fact, let me show it to you a little bit differently here. Take a look at this. This is just going back over the last week. We're looking here at total number of severe weather reports being 1,679 reports. But look, you can see actually the flow of the atmosphere here because we just put that ridge. The moisture pump is right in through here, and this is the corridor. This is that ring of fire type precipitation pattern and severe weather pattern. So this has been one of the more active weeks of severe weather that I kind of have in memory here. And certainly yesterday was another rough day for parts of Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas with the storms that are rolling through there. Now, as we look forward, when is this pattern really going to start to shift, adjust, and break down? So let's just get us all the way out to next Friday. We really still see the dominance of the upper level, it's an upper level ridge and a surface ridge. There's a surface high pressure system here as well. And so the thing is we keep seeing this corridor showing up very wet. So parts of Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, you're just continuing to get this flow of moisture that's causing so much problems. The difficult thing will be is to see how far to the east. Is it right on the Mississippi River that we kind of get the real breakdown where the upper level subsidence, that's where the air is kind of slowly sinking in the atmosphere and warming under that ridge kind of shuts everything down. Now, with the heat that we will be getting in the southeast, there will be pop-up showers and thunderstorms. So it's not as though there won't be any precipitation, but it'll be relatively light. Now, I often talk about corn planting progress. That's been a bigger news story, but let's just take a look at soybean planting progress as well as we kind of frame this weather forecast. Specifically, we can see the deficits that are in place here, and that's because when you look back over the last month, we have been extremely wet in that area as well. It's only been recently that the ridge has really set up and pushed the storms back into Texas and Oklahoma. And cotton planting progress reflects a very similar story where we've had extremely wet conditions over the last month. That's where we're in greatest deficit with the planting of our cotton crop this year. So I just wanted to point out these numbers as well. Brand new drought monitor came out yesterday as well. We did see a couple of places down here in the southeast where we saw a one-class degradation in drought, but overall it didn't change too much week on week. But this upcoming week, with the heat you're about to see me talk about here and the low relative humidities at times, we could get some pretty strong evaporation. Outside of that, in terms of the country, this is some of the lowest drought extent we've ever seen since the drought monitor's inception back in the year 2000. Now, yesterday I had a chance, or last 2 days I had a chance to be in parts of Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and I talked to a lot of growers, and I really wanted to gauge how bad this was. And there's some folks in this area that have just told me that this is it's really tough, and with the heat that's coming in, it's very difficult to continue planting to get the progress going because you can plant a seed into really hot dirt that's going to have no moisture to help germinate, go anywhere. So those moisture deficits you see there in the soil moisture map, they're real, and they're significant. Meanwhile, you just slide a little bit to the west of there, and you can see that we have much of our soil across the rest of the southern region here between 60 and 90% saturated just due to all the heavy rains we've had recently. Well, let's talk about those temperatures. I'm going to play this fast, but we'll step back and just take a look. The numbers are just going to stay in the 90s. Look at that. I mean, it's incredible. We just have several days. This goes out 9 days, and as I stretch you through Friday, here's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I mean, we see some numbers here approaching triple digits, which is why we're going to be seeing here at the end of the month of May, potentially in parts of the southeast, some records fall in terms of high temperatures. So this is going to feel like it is midsummer with these temperatures coming up. Okay, in the near term, what do we watch? I'm just going to go ahead and click play on our high-resolution rapid refresh model. This just gets us out in the next 36 hours starting at 6 a.m. And you can see where the main action is going to be in the near term. Let's step it again. It's going to be Texas and Oklahoma. And again, we're just set up on that ring of fire precipitation pattern that we're going to deal with here. So watching for late in the day today, another round of severe weather setting up right there in the panhandle of Texas and moving through parts of Oklahoma. Kansas, more rain. Missouri, more rain. This is just kind of an unrelenting pattern. So it makes sense that the next 3 days from the Storm Prediction Center, again, kind of just show you that same corridor we've been talking about dealing with more severe weather. So again, up at the top here, we have Friday. This would be Saturday, and down here is Sunday. So slight risk on every day, a couple of pockets of enhanced risk in there as well. And it's just the same regions over and over again with the severe weather threat because the pattern is not breaking down. So I just want to finish off kind of the bigger picture here by showing you the last few things and just say this is the next 9 days of total accumulated precip by the National Blended Model. And it really tells the same story. I mean, you can see, as I just animate this again, how the precipitation is being forced around that upper level ridge. And we just have to try to figure out, and we'll do that at the end of this video, when that ridge breaks down, okay? Temperatures over the next 5 days, well, we've kind of hit this already. Look at the extreme heat here, while out west, as they sit in that trough, temperatures are quite cool. Days 6 through 10, we still hang on to that warmer pattern overall because we're still waiting once we get even into the beginning of June for this whole system to kind of shift a little bit. And that shift may be seen a little bit right here because if you notice, this is just your week 2 precipitation anomalies. We've been really dry here and wet in this corridor, so it's been really wet here. But look at what's happening. With time, you're going to see this, that the ridge is kind of flattening out, and the overall flow pattern is changing such that we're now going to be bringing in quite a bit more precipitation around the periphery of a flattened ridge that's going to be more in this area. So much of the southern region will be moving into a drier time period as we get into the month of June. But there's an interesting thing happening, and this is good, I think, for parts of the southeast, specifically the Carolinas. We may be seeing some wetter conditions there evolving once we get into the month. And this is why. We're just going to play this out. What we see here, this is the trough ridge pattern. We just don't break down that big, there it is. We don't break down that big ridge until we get into the month of June. Now let me show what I'm talking about. Take you back here. This is just the next 3 or 4 days. There it is. That's that trough out west. Big ridge over the southeast, that's the one that brings in the heat and the dry conditions. But notice over the Hudson Bay, the deeper trough developing here, while we get this kind of high over low pattern out west, and that is the pattern change that's quite significant because that pattern has allowed this this ridge to move back over towards Texas there into parts of the Gulf of Mexico. And what we see is we just see a different look overall from the European model ensemble where, as we've been talking about all this week, we've kind of gotten rid of that big bowling ball of a ridge that's been sitting over here, and slowly the pattern's evolving such that that ridge feature is moving a little bit to the west. And because of that, because that's happened, the flow pattern is now doing something a little bit more like this. And that change, or excuse me, I maybe exaggerated that a little bit too much. It's doing something a bit more like that. There we go. And that change is significant, bringing ridging out here, and overall height falls into this area with the trough pattern. It's just different. So we're seeing a shift overall in our precipitation patterns and our temperature patterns. Let me show what it looks like. Let's just animate this out so you can just see until that shift happens, all the systems just kind of follow that and they're blocked around this ridge. In fact, I'll just leave my drawings on there as I click play and you'll notice it. See how they're all orbiting around that high? It's not until, there we go, it's not until we get out into the beginning of June where things break down. So you notice if I take these drawings off here, now we've lost that big area of higher atmospheric pressure. It's way back over here. And that shift is important. We're now sliding around systems and we're flattening out the trough ridge pattern. And that's going to be good for a shift because we need a shift. We don't want to continue to stay blocked up. So if I take you out from June 2nd through June 9th, this is what we're looking at here. Thankfully, right now, no tropical activity is in the forecast. So I know we started the video with that. But as we shift that ridge into this area, it'll now be this corridor around it that stays wet. and you can see that pattern is no good. We're keeping things wet where they've already been wet, but where we like this is where we're bringing some moisture back in to parts of South Carolina and North Carolina, which definitely need it. The problem is there's pockets there in parts of Georgia, Florida, that desperately need some rainfall here. And this pattern where this ridge is just hanging on, moving around but hanging on, is what's preventing a lot of us from getting what we need here in terms of moisture. So expect the hot days to continue. Expect for just pop-up showers and thunderstorms under this pattern. But the shift is important to see as it kind of puts us into a little bit of a new regime across much of the rest of the country. So we'll keep an eye on it for you. I hope you have a great weekend. And we at Nutrien Ag Solutions are hoping you look forward to all of our forecast videos coming out next week. We will talk to you again next week. Have a great weekend. Thank you.